He didn't realize how much of his life he'd handed to other people until the day it all snapped at once. It wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no tears. Just a quiet moment when he finally saw the weight he'd been carrying, and how none of it even belonged to him. Here's a story many people need to hear today. His name was Zayan, a 27-year-old man who lived like he was constantly standing on a stage he never auditioned for. To his co-workers, he was the agreeable one. To his friends, he was the flexible one. To his family, he was the dependable one who never said no. But the truth was simpler and sadder. He had spent years shaping himself into whatever version of him made other people comfortable. It was never about kindness. It was fear. Fear of disappointing someone. Fear of being judged. Fear of hearing the one sentence that used to haunt him since childhood. You should have done better. He learned to smile even when something hurt. He learned to nod even when he disagreed. He learned to shrink himself so people would think he was easy to be around. But none of it ever made him feel seen. If anything, it made him feel invisible. Most days were routine. Wake up, wear something acceptable, go to work, avoid standing out, avoid speaking up, avoid anything that could make someone look at him for too long. He wasn't unhappy, exactly, just exhausted. Exhausted from acting like a filtered version of himself. There was one moment, though, small, forgettable to anyone else, that cracked something open. It was a Friday evening. Everyone at work was gathered around the break room table, deciding where to order food from. Someone asked him, "Zayan, what do you want?" He opened his mouth to say, "Anything is fine," like he always did. But before he could speak, one of his co-workers laughed lightly. "We already know he'll say yes to whatever we choose." The room chuckled, not in a cruel way, in a casual, familiar way. The kind of laugh people make when they think they know you better than you know yourself. Zayan laughed too, or pretended to, but something inside him twisted, not with anger, but with a sharp, quiet ache. They weren't wrong. He was predictable, not because he lacked opinions, but because he never allowed himself to have one noticed. On the walk home, the city lights blurred behind his thoughts. He felt like a background character in his own life, an assistant to everyone else's story. When he reached his apartment, he didn't turn on the lights. He just stood there in the quiet, letting the truth finally hit him. He didn't know what he liked. Not really. He didn't know what he wanted. Not deeply. He only knew what kept people pleased. It was a disorienting feeling. Like realizing the map you've been following wasn't yours. It belonged to everyone else. That night, he made a decision. Not the loud, cinematic, kind, a private, almost fragile one. He told himself, "I'm going to start choosing, even if I choose wrong." The next morning, he woke up feeling strangely nervous, like he was about to do something rebellious. He wasn't. He simply wore a shirt he actually liked, not the one he thought others would prefer. Small, right? But it felt like exhaling after holding his breath for years. Then he did something even more unfamiliar. He spent the weekend alone, not hiding, not avoiding. Intentionally alone. He walked through markets, listened to people bargaining, touched fabrics, smelled spices, sat in a cafe, and ordered something without thinking what anyone else would say. For the first time in a long time, the world felt like his again. Not a stage, not an audience, just life, his life. Monday came, and with it an unexpected test, A coworker asked him to stay late to finish a report they'd procrastinated on. Normally, he would have said yes. It was almost muscle memory. But this time, he paused. Not to be rude, not to prove anything, just to be honest. "I can't stay today," he said gently. "I have plans." His heart kicked in his chest, not because of conflict, but because of the unfamiliar sensation of choosing himself. The coworker blinked, surprised but not angry. "All right, no worries, I'll handle it." That was it. No explosion, no drama, no one hated him. The world didn't collapse. His worth didn't decrease. Nothing burned down. In that quiet, anticlimactic moment, he realized how much fear had been lying to him. Over the next few weeks, he kept making small, honest choices. He stopped forcing himself into conversations he didn't enjoy. He stopped apologizing for things that weren't his fault. He started expressing what he actually felt. Softly, respectfully, but truthfully. Some people adjusted. Some were confused. A few drifted away. But the people who stayed, they understood him better than anyone ever had. And the most unexpected part? The more he showed up as himself, the more grounded he felt. When he looked in the mirror, he didn't see a blurred outline anymore. He saw a person, flawed, growing, learning, but real. His life didn't transform overnight, but he did. Slowly, quietly, steadily, he began to live, not for approval, not for validation, not for applause, just for the simple truth of being who he was always meant to be. In the end, the day he stopped seeking approval wasn't the day the world changed. It was the day he finally did.